The format of tonight's meeting is to have a guest speaker share their experience, strength and hope on how the Alcoholics Anonymous program of recovery is working in their lives for 15 to 20 minutes. Tonight we have asked Ross to share. Thanks, Ross.
Thanks very much. Good evening, friends. My name's Ross. I'm an alcoholic.
Hello, Ross.
I'm sober tonight thanks to AA and a Power Grab and myself. My group's the AA Ballarat Beginners meeting, which meets tonight, 7 o'clock for an hour. Everybody's welcome. My date of sobriety, as far as I'm concerned, this is not controversial, it's just my choice, is the 14th of April 1974 when I put down the marijuana. But actually I stopped drinking before that, so I owe Alcoholics Anonymous that on the 10th of July 1973. So I've sort of celebrated 40 years of not drinking recently. But I still switched the bitch for the witch, and I substituted, and whenever it was a full moon or I felt I should reward myself for not drinking, I smoked some dope, and I wasn't getting well. And AA is about alcohol, so some people don't choose to do that, and that's fine. I don't say anything about anybody else. I just say that I chose to do that. Where to begin? At the beginning, my father was a motor mechanic, my mother home duties until she had to go out and work in a knitting factory because there was violence in the home, abuse. I had a lot of fear as a kid and of the dark. I spent a lot of time in fantasy. I saw my father hit my mother, and 12 years into sobriety, some of that stuff came back to me in night terrors, and I had to go and see a psychiatrist about that was recommended in AA circles at the time, but he wasn't an alcoholic, Dr. Moon. I had a taste of alcohol at a wedding in Adelaide, just a beer. I didn't like it. Then I was working with some other students from Brighton High School at a gay art teacher's place down in Beaumaris. We had two excellent gay art teachers who affected my life. Nothing happened of a sexual nature, but this teacher gave me some claret with lemonade and I got that woozy feeling. Shortly after that, I deliberately bought a bottle of sherry round at the local hotel in the Nepean Highway, Sierakowski's Hotel, I think it's gone now. And I hid it in the front yard and I retrieved it that night. It was an illegal act. I was 14 and a half. It was a drug-like experience because I drank it on a railway embankment down on the way to a dance in Middle Brighton. I didn't drink it with any friends. It wasn't social drinking. I didn't drink it out of a glass. I upended the bottle and I got it into me and I felt that warmth go right down to my toes, and I danced wildly around the floor and didn't need a partner. I just did the cakewalk. So, and that set me off on a path where alcohol loomed large on the horizon, as an old guy down at Warrnambool used to say. From that point on, it was stitched through the fabric of my life. I made decisions and I did things because of alcohol. And it began immediately because I used to have a paper round that I'd get 30 shillings a week. And I graduated quickly to the top shelf, and I was buying bottles of Gilbey's gin, Beanley rum and vodka, and I was necking them and mixing Coke or lemon squash on the way to dances. My first sexual experiences were connected with alcohol. And of course, once I got a car, the car accidents were connected with alcohol. The physical and mental cruelty to the women around me were connected with alcohol. The blackouts were frequent. I'd be standing at a party, standing in the kitchen drinking, of course, near the fridge, and whole hours would pass and I'd come in and out of that sort of stuff. And the nightmares and the paranoia and the fears. And I had a great success on drugs in my final year at high school. The chemist I worked for as a chemist boy had said, "These will be good for you, Ross," so he gave me Ritalin. It was 1961. He said, "They'll be good to study with." I remember I could buy 30 or 100. I chose to buy 100. I remember walking home, I read the blurb from Cyber in Switzerland where it said that you could make great intellectual leaps of imagination and synthesis. And I got high before I took the damn things, and I remember I cut them in half at first, but then one night I took 10 just to see what it was like, you know. And I went in the bathroom, my jugular vein was bouncing out of my neck and my heart was palpitating, and I lay on the bed and I just floated. So after that, I never gave myself an unpopular decision like no. I took anything and everything that was going down, and as I said, switched the bitch for the witch, and anything to get me out of the present reality. I was always projecting into the future, you know. That gave me an exhibition, took it away from Melbourne Grammar. They always got the exhibition in geography. I got 98 out of 100. And I went to Monash when it was called The Farm. There were only 200 students there, and they said, you could have gone to Melbourne. What you come out here for? And I mention it because often in AA, people are the best basketball players or they're the best boxers. And all it does is it gave me an inflated ego coupled with low self-esteem. I always felt, as the guy who brought me into AA said later about himself, I always felt lower than a rubbish tip. I always felt that I was a pseudo, that I was a facade. And so I went out to Monash, I went out to the Notting Hill pub, and after that, that's what I did, and my academic results went down. The first day I was there, I met the guy who was to give me the message of AA. He had the same name as me. We became editors of the student newspaper together, and we went out in a blaze of glory because the Age wouldn't print the magic word, and we wanted to print it. And years later, he was a Fulbright scholar in the US, and I went off to South America after I got married. The marriage was a drunken affair. It was held in the backyard, the wedding breakfast. The actual wedding, 1968, was in the non-denominational chapel at Monash because I wanted the trappings of religion, but I was an atheist. I'd rejected anything to do with God. I was an altar boy who altered. I was doing things that my conscience didn't approve of, so I decided to completely jettison God. And I read the books of the Marquis de Sade, who said that we're not accountable to anybody. And of course I became sadistic too, and I became emotionally separated from my emotions like a concentration camp commandant. And anyway, the wedding, I brought a Unitarian minister called William James from East Melbourne in a taxi out to Monash, and he was given strict instructions not to mention God. And my mother-in-law, I'd been drinking that day, my mother-in-law said that morning, what are we going to give them to eat? And I said, well, I don't know. And she had to go up and get 2 chooks or something to feed them. And I'd freighted in 100 bottles of Yaldara champagne from South Australia, and because I figured I'd need 2 bottles of champagne at least, and there would be 50 there, so they'd all need 2 bottles of champagne each, you know. And, that night we were in the Southern Cross Hotel where the Beatles came, and I had my hands around my wife's neck saying, we're going to South America, we're going to South America. And that was a great obsession. In 1971, I went to South America with her on the old Fair Sky, drank all the way across in all the bars. I think there were 9 bars. It's a funny thing that I think is funny now. There's no love like one drunken bum for another, and my drinking companion on the Fair Sky was a guy called Mr. O. And I asked him to write it down one day, how he spelled his name. It was a Scandinavian name. And he wrote down double A. Apparently it's quite a common Scandinavian name. So I was drinking with Mr. AA all the way across the Pacific in 1971. And actually when we took off in a Volkswagen, which was landed there from a Japanese freighter, took 3 months to arrive. I was drunk every day. When we set off down the Pan Pacific Highway, in Colombia, I was waving this Super 8 camera around. And now, when I look at it, I was just taking still shots of strange things. One of them was of a plaque outside a doorway which said Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was 1971, and I never knew that in 1983, 12 years later, I'd start the first Spanish-speaking meeting in Melbourne, and they're still going, you know. So I get superstitious about these things. I feel as if there's something there trying to get through to me. An old senior mistress at the school, she said, you'll give me a warning at 15, will you?
Yes.
Thanks. She was an old senior mistress at Melbourne, at Brighton High School. One night a hip flask fell out on the floor when she was dancing with the principal, and without stopping she just kicked it to the side of the floor, you know, of the room. She said to me, she'd known me there as a student, and later I taught with her at Nidri, and she said, "Ross, we tried to get through to you, but you resisted communication." What a perfect definition of an alcoholic, you know. And I had an affinity with her. I think she had her own problem. But anyway, look, I drank on, as my first sponsor, Con, used to say, in ignorance for 14 and a half years. I gave it a pretty good go. I went down to Tangiers for one day to get a big block of hashish. 1972, I was drinking big flagons, garrafas they were called, of wine in Lisbon. I was supposed to be teaching 12 hours a week in the Faculdade de Letras of the Lisbon University, teaching English, and I was just drinking round the clock, and I'd drink, pass out, and when my wife came home from teaching at the British Institute, I can remember, I've got a picture in my mind of holding up like a Vegemite jar or whatever of spirits for her to drink, because I thought that's what everybody did, you know. And the height of my drinking was watching Bewitched with Portuguese subtitles, slumped in the seat in this upstairs flat in the Avenida de Roma in Portugal. And I saw my son born, and I wrote him a letter that night, which was to be read on his 21st birthday. And it said that this world was a vale of tears. And the next time I read those words were in the big book. Bill Wilson refers to a vale of tears. So that's how I saw the world. That son is 40 years old now. He's never seen me drunk or drugged. He's got 17 years up in Narcotics Anonymous. I myself was at the first meeting of NA in Melbourne on the 21st of August 1976, and I've kept going to that fellowship so I don't have to talk about drugs here. And he's given us a 3-year-old granddaughter, which I wouldn't have if he'd gone down the tube the way he was going when he did his own drinking and drugging. And he's had worse times than me because I haven't been locked up yet. He's done 2 nights in Tirana at least. So I came back to Australia. I had a job at Monash University. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't study. I was seeking people who drank as fast as I did. There was trouble with the police in Lonsdale Street. The publican tore my shirt because I was saying that he sold rotten wine. I called the cops. The cops came, said, "Wait out here." They went inside. They came out. They said, "We're not proceeding with this matter." They got in their paddy wagon and roared off. Like a loyal, upstanding member of the respectable middle class, teaching at Monash University in the history department, I went up to make a complaint against the police for not acting. And the inspector who typed my statement looked up at one point, and he had glasses, and he said, "Have you been drinking today, sir?" And I said, "Only a couple," you know, the classic thing. And so I've got a statement from the Peruvian police when I hit a mule in Peru. I've got that statement from the D24. I was frog-marched out of my own home by detectives from Brighton after a drunken fracas with my father. My girlfriend arrived right at that moment, who's my wife today. I stopped drinking because I was taken to my first meeting by that Ross, who recently wrote a book called My Name is Ross, I'm an Alcoholic. We parted company some years ago because I could see that sort of thing coming. I don't agree with breaking anonymity, but it's a very good book and it's helped a lot of people, and good luck to him. And Ross did me the greatest favour another alcoholic can do another alcoholic. One night in Sydney, I'd been drinking tequila. He'd come back from the US, I'd come up from South America. And he said to me, "Would you like to go to an AA meeting?" And puffed up with alcoholic grandiosity and invincibility, I said yes. And he said very important words to me, which is all I say to anybody I 12-step. He said, "Well, just come along with an open mind." And I tried to have an open mind, but when I went to that first meeting, I liked the guy who sat at the door and shook my hand. He was the type I used to like to drink with up in Broome or around Australia when I was hitchhiking. And I sat down, I was trying to work out what this show was. I got down to the third step where it mentions God for the first time, and my open mind was closing. And if it had closed completely, I'm absolutely certain I'd be dead tonight. But the woman in the chair said, you can walk out this room tonight and need never drink again if you so desire. And I thought, what if it's true? They seem to speak with authority. Some of them have been drinking for 20 years and some of them have been sober for 20 years. What if I can do this? I tried to stop drinking in 68, I lasted 6 weeks. 71, I lasted 3 days. It was getting shorter, I knew I couldn't do it on my unaided intellectual effort. And I got that hope, you know, and I thought, well, never mind who else dies in the gutter clutching a bottle of metho as long as it's not me. Most important that it's not this little black duck. Because if I pick up that fatal first drink, it's history. All those 40 years that I've had in AA are a bucket of ashes. They've caught the train to Brisbane, they're gone. So the only thing is I've got nothing in my blood but blood tonight. And I've had an exquisite journey, as my best friend in AA says, Alan B. And I've known those men at the young people's group, because that was my second meeting. After 2 months of trying to be a private alcoholic and run around the university oval and stay away from the university pub and expect my wife to genuflect when I came home, and she was never grateful and she's still not grateful. And so I went to my second meeting at the young people's group, and they said, they didn't say, are you a high bottom alcoholic, a low bottom alcoholic, or a primary alcoholic, or a secondary alcoholic, or a chronic alcoholic, or a real alcoholic, or have you got the required 9 months sobriety before you speak? They just said, do you want to speak? And I knew that if I didn't get up, I wouldn't get what those other young people had. They were laughing and joking. There was David O, who was cashiered out of the Navy. He's a hopeless alcoholic at 19. I was 28 and a half. Some of them had drunk and drugged more than me, some had less. And I got up and I spoke and I said those words. I'm an alcoholic, my name's Ross, I'm an alcoholic. As soon as I said those words, I became a member of AA, because you're a member of AA when you say you are, not when anybody puts a label on you or a tattoo or a urine test or anything else. And the guy who got up after me gave me the mail for the day, Teddy H. He said, you don't have to intellectualise this program, you only have to utilise it. And he may have been trying to put me down as teaching at the university or something, I don't care, because when he said those words, I'd been trying to work out, how does it work? Is it cathartic therapy? Is it mysticism, spiritualism? What is it? And he gave me the news. He said, you don't have to work it out, you just have to use it. So ever since then, I've stitched together 7 international conventions. I've slept in Dr. Bob's house. I've used the big book. I've been sponsored. I sponsor. And I'm fully in favour of men's meetings, because at 18 years I ran off with a married French lady, and that it imperilled my sobriety, caused my divorce and her divorce. I was fortunate that the wife, the original wife, consented to remarry me after 10 years, and we've been remarried since 2003. I've just been to men's meetings in Bali. I've been helped by male energy very much. And so I've started a men's group in Ballarat, and we met all last year, and now we've gone public. It's lasted 3 months in a meeting in Ballarat. This may not have been what you expected to hear. It's just what I felt like saying. So thank you for the privilege of coming here.